I almost didn't make it to the toilet today. Well, today is another day and today is another video. And if you have not done the, you know, needed stuff you need to do to know when I do videos, the bell notification does help significantly with that. But I mentioned in my previous video, we all have roots somewhere, shape, or form. And the one root that I have is indeed, in fact, nu metal. Shows my age, huh? Now I know I obviously went on into detail as to where I actually truly began and where I ended up when it came to, discovering new music. And yes, I did realize that in that video and then also in my introduction video, I did swear a lot. So we're going to try not to do that. Nu metal, angsty stuff. Now, I know I also mentioned that in my collection there were a vast majority of vinyl records that did leave my collection, and I really don't have much left. And it really goes to show as to how much I actually had and what I do have. It's a big numbers. Big numbers. And obviously, there were a lot of bands that I mentioned when I did discover nu metal in my previous video. And there were some albums by those bands that I did have at some point in my collection. In my stupid Calm Collective. No swearing. Try. But yes, there were some albums that I did have by some, certain bands. One of them was indeed, in fact, Mudvayne, which was, I think it was the All Things to Come, the beginning of All Things to Come. It's the Alien album where they dressed up as aliens and they gave up the paint gimmick thing that they were doing in the beginning of their career. And then another band that I had in my collection was Follow the Leader by Korn. Really solid album that came around in the late 90s, early 2000s. Very very aggressive stuff for the time. Did you know that fun fact? Slayer released an album that, oddly enough, dropped on a date that we must never forget. And the album's actually called God Hates Us All. Look at the date and say to yourself, accurate. But there was a lot of bands around that time that were just pushing very, very emotional stuff. Some of it was personal, some of it was political, some of it was actually real and true. And I think that probably was what gravitated a lot of people, especially in my era, gravitated towards that sort of music, because it just simplified and collectively did its job. And that was, yeah, it was relatable shit, I swore. Banana Bread, hell yeah. Now I have 4 albums to show you, and I'm going to talk about them, and I'm going to do my best to get through it without being stuck in a thought, and that's gonna take so much effort out of me. I don't even know how I even function. I don't even know how I even get through these videos now, especially with all the editing, trying to be, attentive, not cutting myself out mid-sentence, stuff like that. And the albums that I have here to show you, I'm going to briefly talk about them and kind of give you a rundown as to why I feel you should like them. Not because I like them, but it's also because they're actually really good albums, and you should listen to them if you haven't, and if you have. So without further ado, here are the 4 albums that I have to show to you today. And yes, it would be more, but liquidating my collection was a thing, and I had to do it, and that sucks. Knowing that I had to do that, shake. So here are the albums that I have to show you, and I'm going to go with them one by one. They're not in numerical order. They're not ranked, top to bottom. I just found them in my collection that I have left, and I pulled them out, and yeah, here we go. So the first album is System of a Down, Toxicity. This album is probably a standalone go-to when it comes to System of a Down stuff. I know a lot of people prefer the Hand album. Some people prefer Steal This Album, Hypnotize. They've done quite a bit, but this album is the bee's knees. It's really good, and everybody knows, Wake Up. You were supposed to do the rest. I wasn't going to do it for you. And then obviously there are some really awesome songs off of this. Aerials is just a masterpiece on this album. And then obviously you have Prison Song, which that song is messed up. And then you have Deer Dance. You have Toxicity. I personally like Psycho. That doesn't relate to me at all. Anyway, but yes, there is a lot of solid songs off of this album. It was really primitive around that time of, like I said, the early 2000s, where a lot of bands at that time were just force-feeding music into people's minds. And I will say this was like an album that was very, very much-needed. And in terms of how I got this album, I don't remember anymore. It's a fog. It's a fog. System of a Down, Toxicity, really solid album. I mean, everybody enjoys the antics that, Serge does with not just what he does on his own, but with System of a Down and System of a Down. It's really good stuff. It's very enjoyable. Shake time. But yeah, System of a Down. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, next on the list is probably a band that I feel is unique in its own, not just for the simple fact of the vocal approach, but everybody knows that there was one individual in the nu metal genre that would take his hair and apply various amounts of hairspray, gel, coom. Not that he used cum, but it was relatively impressive to see his hair be upright and just not move at all. And yes, I'm referring to the late Wayne Static and the album Machine. This album is a banger. It's so good. When I stumbled upon this album, I was like in my introduction of middle school, where all nu metal as a whole was just being like slammed into my face at 1,000 miles an hour. And this album by Static X was an album that I gravitated towards. Why? Because Get to the Gone was a song that was like, ooh, tasty. And then obviously from there I went backwards and listened to Wisconsin Death Trip, which that album is another banger. And to be completely honest, Shadow Zone is another good one. And then you have Cannibal. That's another good one. Static X is fucking good. I swore again. Damn it! But this album was an album that I had thoroughly enjoyed when I was a child. And when I did see Static X live prior to the pandemic, yes, Wayne wasn't involved, but it was the anniversary of Wisconsin Death Trip, where they did play that whole album in its entirety. They also played stuff off of this. They also played stuff off of Shadow Zone. The album, the show. But the show was a really awesome show, and with Zero, it pains me to not say who Zero really is, because we all know who Zero really is, but we're going to go with the show and go with the flow and say Zero is Zero and that it is nobody that we know. That's so dope. But Static X is a nu metal band that most people all know, not just because of Wayne Static and his hair, but Static X is just a band that is truly unique. It's standalone. A lot of people know Static X when it comes to nu metal. And Machine is just an album that I feel exemplifies nu metal. And I'm not trying to ignore, all the works that Static X has done, but to me, Static X with Machine it's the bee's knees. Ooh, I wanna have some banana chocolate bread. Open hound. Hell yeah. That was a big piece. But the next band and the next album I have to show you is a band that a lot of people I kind of wishy-washy with it, and I understand why. Because this band is more on the hip hop side when it comes to nu metal, because nu metal is a mixture of hip hop, rap, and metal. And I don't know why they called it nu metal, but that's what nu metal defines as. And everyone knows that there are a multitude of bands that captivate that, and there are some bands that do a very horrible job at it. That's how it is when it comes to music. There are bands that just do it well, and there are just bands that just should just be a bagger at a grocery store instead. But one band that I did stumble upon again in the early 2000s was Mushroomhead. And this album is their not debut album, because this band has been around since like the mid 90s, believe it or not. And that is one fact that most people tend to forget. But this album was an album that I consumed entirely, and I just gravitated towards it because it was such an awesome album. And one thing that I found relatively hilarious with this album is that on the CD version of this, there is an extra song, and it's a remix version of Bawomp. And you get to notice that they say cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I'm not making that up. But yes, this album is just really solid. You have Bawomp, you have Solitaire Unraveling, which they did a music video for. You have Zaroked, which is a heavy song. And then you have Empty Spaces, which is not really a big song, but it leads up to the song after that, Born of Desire. And I felt like this band was unique and somewhat funny in a way, because there was one member in the band where his name was Pig Bennis. Pig Bennis. Okay. But I know throughout the years, Mushroomhead has gone through a lot of lineup changes. And I know Jeffrey Nothing isn't in this band anymore, but J-Man, which is this painted face, he recently rejoined Mushroomhead, and that's really good to see. This era of Mushroomhead is my favorite. I like this era of Mushroomhead a lot. It's good. It's good. And I know that Mushroomhead and Static X did a tour not too long ago, and I had a ticket for it, but I didn't go because I didn't have the money for the show. And I'm gonna eat my sadness away with some chocolate chip banana bread. Shake time. Now the last album that I have to show you is an album that a lot of people know of and should know of, and if you don't know, I have a lot of questions. But that album I have to show you, and it is the last album for this video, is Slipknot, Iowa. Now the one thing you probably notice is that there's this little thing right here, and this little thing is the original CD pressing of Iowa, where it's just like the vinyl, where it's very shiny. But the booklet, the pages are translucent of all the band members' faces. Cool. This CD is old as heck. Heck. We're going to go with heck for that word. And no, I don't mean hell, I mean... But this album, I understand why a lot of people like this album, and it goes without saying, it was very dark. It was very heavy. This album aged like fine wine, let me tell you. And I know that the band has mentioned time and time again that Iowa was a deep, personal album. They hated recording it. They hated the time frame of when this album was being made, because the band was going through a lot of personal things between, alcoholism, relationships. Like, the list is endless. And the band has said time and time again that they will never, ever, ever write an album like Iowa ever again. And I know why. Because you have, for example, My Plague. If you listen to that song and read the lyrics, yeah. And then you have Disaster Pieces. It's not fucking... And I swore again. It's singular, not plural. It's disaster piece. Piece. Not pieces. Like Reese's Pieces. Disaster piece. And then, of course, there's people equal sugar, honey, iced tea. I hope you get that. And then, of course, there's the Heretic Anthem. There's Gently, Left Behind. This album's so good. I just want to eat it. That's how good it is. I would not eat this, by the way. It's like, that would be very difficult to poop out. And the one thing you probably also notice is that if you are a vinyl collector of any way, shape, or form, not only this is an original copy of Iowa, but you will also notice that it has its full corner. Normally, it's cut. Why? Don't know. But this one has its corner. And I got this off of Discogs a while ago, like years ago. But Slipknot, Iowa, like, I still feel this is the heaviest album that they've ever done. They will never top it. I will die on that hill, and I will legit fist fight you. Banana bread. I'm eating it like a Neanderthal. But yes, that is my personal opinion about this album by this band. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. It's good. It's real good. But yes, obviously there were a lot of bands that I did not get to mention, which, yes, I know. I'm not trying to ignore them. Trust me, there are a plethora of bands around the late 90s, early 2000s, the primitive era of nu metal, as I call it, that did put a massive impact in my life. And I'm pretty sure if you are a fan of nu metal, you can relate to that. And yeah, that's good. That's good that we relate on that. And if we don't relate on that, I don't have to say it, but I can do it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I know, short, simple, to the point. I get it. Yeah. Sometimes videos are like that. Sometimes videos are going to be long. Expect that. I'm not going to do long videos all the damn time. There are videos where I'm only going to do little snippets and you're just going to have to deal with it. Sorry. But yeah, that's really it for today's video. Hope you enjoy it. Yes, it's a video that you can probably play around your family, around, you know, snack time, eating, you know, cheese puffs or mac and cheese and dino nuggets. Food tastes better in a shape. It's a fact. But yeah, I did my best not to swear in this video. Good job, Brett. Banana bread. Yummy. Well, what to expect in next video? I don't know. I haven't gotten that far yet. I try not to plan ahead anymore because that stresses me the hell out and that's not good for me at all. But if you have any ideas, comment. And maybe I do them. Maybe I won't do them. Who knows? I have a question for you. Speaking of who knows, how many bucks does a chicken need to do before it gawks? Like, what's the normal amount? Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's just and they do it after 1. What is the normal amount? We need to fund that. We need to fund that. But that's it for this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah. Fuck.